particular function. So, for instance, if you want something to happen after you've clicked, that's a what? That's an event that happens due to what? A function. So, events happen whenever a function happens whenever an event occurs. So, if something is clicked, what's the event? Click. What's the function? Something that happens after the click happens. You understand it now? Sometimes events will occur after a function. Doesn't actually mean which one comes first. Sometimes event comes first, sometimes function comes first. But what you need to know is that events are like actions that happen after a particular function, or before a function, or due to a function. Do you understand it now? That's basically what your events are. And we have a lot of events. You have the first one is your click event. So I'm just going to go ahead and let me just write everything here. So the first one I'll be talking about will be your click event. So I'm going to come here, click event. Why is there an error here? No, let me just click everything. Good. The first one we're talking about will be your click event, and then I'll be explaining what exactly your click events are. Now, click events happen after a click. After your mouse was clicked. This is what your click event, this is what happens. So after you click on something, your click event happens. Do you understand it now? So for instance, let us do something much more, let us explain, let's do something else. So for instance, let's say you want to take this particular button and then you want something to happen whenever this particular button is clicked. That's what your event is, isn't it? I can go ahead and come here and say, I can get my button inside of my JavaScript. How do I get my button inside of my JavaScript? How do I do it? So, my btn, the ID, right? So I can say const btn equals to what? Document dot query selector. I'm going to use query selector. And what's this thing? My btn. So we're going to use btn equals to what? Document dot query selector. We're going to get it using what? ID of my btn. Now, the next thing that we're going to do now is that we're going to create a click event. Whenever something is clicked, certain things have to happen. So we can say what? btn dot what? Add event. That's where add event listener comes in. So we have add event listener. Now, add event listener, in JavaScript, you have two ways of writing your event. Either you write your event as an attribute, or you write your event in your JavaScript. Now, how do you do that? I'm going to show you add event listener, and I'm going to show you as an attribute. Now, add event listener is a JavaScript function that allows you listen for a particular event. So it allows your JavaScript or your code listen for a particular event. Now, if that event happens, the function is going to occur. Is it clear to you now? So that's how it works. So now, how does this work? So for instance, now you have add event listener. It's not going to listen for an event. And in this case, we are talking about click. It's going to listen for a click event. So what do I mean? I can come right here and I can say, I can create a function first. Always create a function first. Const function equals to what? Oh, sorry. I wanted to use what's the name? Listen. Okay, you know what? Let me just show you another way of writing functions. So now, in function, before I go into in functions, you write functions in two ways. The first is using your function keyword. The second is using what? Arrow functions. We're going to come back to that stuff. Second is using arrow functions. Now, is that use function keyword or use arrow function? Arrow function was introduced in ES6. Remember when I was explaining the history of JavaScript to you that ES6 was released in what? In what year? No? Yes, 2015. Yes, ECMAScript was released in 2009, but they were upgrading every year. And then ES6 was the last version and was released in 2015. So arrow function was introduced in 2015. And then basically what this function is, it has a lot of functions, but it has a lot of importance. One of the importance is readability. It makes your function more readable. You understand? So I'm going to use arrow function. To use arrow function, use your what? You can declare with your const. First of all, I can say const. Then I can now give you the function name. So what's the function name? Click btn. That's the function name. Equals to what? Then I can have this. Then I can have my arrow, and then this is a function. Now this right here is the same thing as function click btn, right? This. Sorry, that was a mistake. Now this right here is the same thing as this. Now when you go on, you understand why we are using this. I'm going to explain all these things very soon, so you understand why this is like the modern way of writing functions. You can use anyone you want, depends on you. But this is actually the modern way of writing functions. But you have your const click btn equals to this, and then you are going to have your functions. So I'm just going to remove this. Now this is what arrow functions is all about. Now let us continue. So I'm going to be using arrow functions here, and going forward, I'm going to be using arrow functions to explain our function. Yeah. Yeah. It's I just like an indication for the arrow function. So going forward, I'm going to be using arrow functions. Now in this my function, I'm going to create an event listener. I'm going to say btn dot what add event listener, and I'm going to listen for a click event. Now as you can see, first of all, this is how you do your event listener. So the button or whatever it is you want to listen for an event on. So btn dot what add event listener. Then you open your parentheses. And in the first part, you actually talk about the event you want to listen for. In this case, what are you listening for? A click event. You can listen for any event, load, click, anyone. But in this case, I want to listen for a what? A click event. I'm going to write click. Right? Then beside it, there's a comma. Beside it, you now have a what? You now have your function. So I can say function. Now I can also see use this. This is what arrow function. You understand? Or you can go back and say function. And then this, depending on the one that you want. Do you get it now? But again, I'm going to use arrow function because I just want you to understand how to use arrow. Now, this right here is a nameless function. Why is it a nameless? Notice it's a function, right? But it does not have a name. I've been declaring it since function for years. When someone even ask me, nobody asked me. But it's fine. Function. But I did not write a name. Why? Because there's some functions that don't actually need name. They just need to work because they've been added to another function. And what's the function right here? The function is what? The event right here. And the event is tied to another function, which is what? The click button. Let's just click that. So you have what? btn dot add event listener. What are you listening for? A click event. So whenever this is clicked, you want this particular this to change from button has been clicked. So from you want it to change from So let us make it empty. Let's make it empty, right? So you want anytime you click this, you want this to change from the empty this that is there to what button has been clicked. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my h1. So I'm going to say const text equals to what document dot query selector, and then I'm going to bring in what hash head, which is this one right here. You understand? So I'm going to come right here and I'm going to say I'm going to say text dot what inner HTML, right, equals to what button has been clicked. You understand? Then I'm going to come right here outside here and I'm going to say click button to call my function. So click it here. Now, if I go ahead and I check out what we have here, so I'm going to refresh it. Click me, and as you can see, it says button. Now, this is what a click event is. This is basically what a click event is. A click event is saying that whenever something is clicked, certain things have to happen. Now, alternatively, you can have something like this. Now, instead of having your event list now right here, you can go ahead and say const click btn equals to this. Now, let me show you what I'm saying. I can easily say const what click btn equals to what this. Do you understand? So I cannot say whenever that particular btn is clicked, we cannot have what text.inner html will now be equals what button has been clicked. Now, what have I just done here? All I've used here is what I've done. Click btn equals what text. So now, the only thing I'm changing is what text. Do you see me using btn here? Yeah? Do you see me changing anything about btn there? No. Meaning that what my button has not been affected in my JavaScript. I can now go ahead and come to my button right here, my HTML, and I can say, on click, which is another attribute. I can say on click. Now, as you can see, you have a lot of them. You have on about, on law, on can play, on change, on click. On click is the same thing as what your click event in add event list. So I can say on click, right? Then in this place, I can call my function name. What's my function name here? Click btn, right? I can say click btn, and I can call it. As you can see, I call the function. Just the normal way you call your function here. Now, I can go ahead and I can check it out now. So if I refresh and I click btn, I say I still work. You understand? So what I'm trying to say is that if you don't want to go ahead and say add event listener and use all of these things, you can come right here, give your logic. What's your logic? What's the major logic here? The major logic is that whenever this button is clicked, this text.inner HTML equals what button has been clicked. So you can just go ahead and give your logic. Then come back to your HTML and call the function as an on click. You understand it now? That is basically how you work with what your on click attribute in your HTML. Mm-hmm. Yeah? It's an event. That's something. It's an event. So I'm just giving you alternative so that you can have multiple ideas about the same thing. You have add event listener. Add event listener is a JavaScript function that listens for events. You have on click. On click is an HTML attribute that listens for what? Event. Yes. In JavaScript, you have to first of all make sure that you add it to an event listener. As you can see, btn.add event listener, then what? Click. But yeah, in case you don't want to go ahead and start writing all of these things, you can just have your function and then go ahead and call your function name here. So you know that I said three things before you can use a function. First of all, you need to declare the function. Give your function the argument and call it. Now you can do the first two in your JavaScript and then call it out in your what? In your HTML. I hope everybody is getting this. I didn't get that question. Because you've been doing JavaScript for those elements before. No, you cannot do that. If you want to do that, you will stress yourself. You understand?